All right. All right, sweet. Let's hope that works. All right, we're good. Awesome. All right, sweet. Well, welcome, guys. Like I said, I'm Will Roberts. That's my face. I'm the partner in military lending at UMortgage. What you're going to learn today is, be a little bit about background, but basically, I got really lucky, and I want you guys to not have to just based on luck kind of figure it out. Like, I want you to have knowledge that I didn't have when I graduated from Wharton and wanted to buy a house. And I also want you to make decisions better than I made them. But I can tell you already are, right? So I live in Greenwich, Connecticut. My wife goes to Columbia, beautiful city, right? Yeah, you have the parades, got great buildings, Central Park. That's my son at the Equinox, really soaking it in, getting his pump on. That's us in Central Park, big, beautiful faces. This is Philadelphia. I think I know which one I would rather choose. That was my daily existence at Wharton. Who am I? So I'm from New Orleans. I went to the Naval Academy Prep School, Naval Academy, served in the Marine Corps as an intelligence officer for 6 years. Started paint shooting with a bunch of other vets, which was fun. Realized I didn't know shit about the business world. So I went to Wharton, then became an investment banker at Allen & Company for about 1.5 years. Again, realized I didn't know shit about this world. Left that, started Roberts & Company, which is a private equity firm that I run. It's real estate centric. I own some real estate in there. That's all rental properties. And then when I was leaving Wharton, I met my now business partner and we started talking about Veterans Alliance. And so what is Veterans Alliance? It's 12 veterans from every service, and to a man, we all got screwed over using the VA loan. We're like, there's got to be a better way than our friends, brothers, sisters getting screwed over using this thing. So we're hell-bent on creating a network from like day one, you start talking to us, to day's end when you buy your house. It's all insular. You're talking to a vet that understands what you did, appreciates what you did, and wants to help you. And in 2023, we closed out as the #1 VA loan team in the country. So what this should really say is, what is a broker, me, versus a retail lender? This is like Chase, Quicken, Veterans United, Loan Depot. They're lending internal money. I'm finding money for you. So we work with 40 to 45 wholesalers on each deal. We pin them against each other. Like, we make them spit out the best rate they possibly can. So like, if I'm talking to them like, hey, I got a guy buying $1 million condo in New York City. They're like, okay, cool, we'll give you 7.5. I'm like, really? Because UWM's giving me 7.25. They're like, okay, we'll do 7.125. I'm like, what about 6.5? So we usually can spit out the best rate possible on a given day, on a given file, guaranteed. It gives us, like I said, instant pricing authority, negotiating power. Voiceover, this is a huge one. So if I was lending internal money, my balance sheet to you guys, we could never have this conversation. I can never tell you how to game the game, how to like present yourself in a way that makes you look really desirable, how to fix your credit report, all this stuff. But me, I want you to win. The only way that I continue this business and UMortgage and VA starts to grow is by helping you guys out. I don't get paid on rate. I don't get paid on loan size. Whether you do $1 million loan or $5 million loan makes no difference to me. I want you guys to win. I want you to have the best rate possible. The other guys, dude, if I'm lending you my money, I'm going to get you the highest rate I could possibly can, because I'm trying to make a return for me or my shareholders, right? So like, JP Morgan doesn't give a shit about you. I do. And they're probably going to win. So here's some truths about VA loans. So 90% of the questions I get are based on these. Like, oh, the VA's lending me money. VA's not lending you money. So if you buy a normal conventional loan, you're putting somewhere between 5 and 30% down on that loan. The VA is just guaranteeing that 25% in this case to the person who's lending you the money. So for the bank, it's a win, right? On a $1 million house, they're doing 100% loan to value on that. The VA is guaranteeing 25%. And that's why you immediately see VA loans tick down about 0.5% from conventional single family homes. So just keep that in your mind. The VA is not loaning you money. It's someone else, whether it's, like I said, Chase, whoever. You can use your VA home loan more than once. That's another big thing. So you can technically use your VA loan as many times as you want. The only limit to that is if you have multiple properties. So the next part, you could have more than one at one time. If you have multiple properties, that's the only time any county loan limit applies. So in New York, it's 1,249,650 in New York City. So you could technically, if you could find it, have 10 $112,000 houses here, totally fine within the VA loan. You can buy a condo. This is huge. In 2022, my friend was the first guy to buy a condo in New York City using the VA loan. And it's really simple. You just present the condo docs, we get it approved by some VA lawyers, and we made it this process that's real fast. It's regionally based, so we know the guys and gals that are approving in each region. Super fast. I own a condo in Connecticut, same deal. Just quick, easy approval. And all they're looking for there, because here we have co-ops, right? All they're looking for is that the condo association does not have first tier on your property, meaning that they can't decide when you're going to sell it, who you sell it to, who you rent it to, all that stuff. And honestly, like that's a great check for you. And just something to keep in your mind, like the VA, everything the VA does is to benefit the vet. Like VA gets a negative stigma. Now working with them like daily, VA is awesome. And they want you guys to do great things. You can buy a fixer-upper at the VA loan. So you hear stuff all the time like no chipping paint, you need electrical, it's all bullshit. You can buy, we did a house that had burned to the ground and it was technically a rehab loan, like literally like 2 pieces of wood sticking up. And we're like, yeah, that's a house. Renovation loan. Perfect. And what's a renovation loan? So let's say you get approved for $1 million and you find a $750,000 house that needs $250,000 of work. We write you a loan for $1 million. We put $250,000 in an escrow account and your contractor takes draws on the $250,000. Now you pay market rate for a construction loan. Put that in perspective, market rate on construction, sorry, you're paying VA rate for a construction loan. Market rate for a construction loan is like 10 to 15%, and you're bringing like 30% down. So this is huge. You're getting a 0% down construction loan at a VA loan rate. You will hear this a lot. Can't use a down payment. That's totally wrong. You can put 100% money down. $1 million house, put $1 million down. On closing, I hand you a check for $1 million. Doesn't matter. Why would you ever do that? It's because certain sellers in certain areas, unfortunately in New York, it's one of them, are very used to seeing people put down 10, 20, 30% down. And so when you come with a 0% fully financed loan, they're like, oh, this guy doesn't have any skin in the game. My thing, I'm always like, oh, you weren't in fucking Iraq when he was there, so you didn't have any skin in the game then. But that's fine. Do what you need to get it closed. Do what you need to get the deal done. We'll talk about that later, and we'll figure out the rest of the backside. That brings me to the next point, waiving. Okay, all right. We can hear, yeah? We good? Good now. Good now. All right. All right. Hey, all right. The Marine, I figured it out. I'm not retarded. All right. Don't tell me. All right. Where were we? So many items can be appraised. I'm gonna stay back here. Stay in my comfort zone. Many items can be waived. The only thing that can't be is what's federally mandated. What's federally mandated? Any loan has to be appraised. That's so 2008 doesn't happen. What's the other thing? Some states require termite inspections. That's also kind of waivable depending on age. Some other things like how you do your inspection. I live in Connecticut. Technically, I needed one. I didn't do one. There's no size limit. You get approved for a $4.5 million fourplex or duplex in Brooklyn, we're going to get you the money for it. Like that's the largest that we've done on the VA loan, but technically you could get a $10 million VA loan. It's just, you'd have to be approved. That's a new thing. That changed in like 2020. Anecdotally, the VA has 3 missions. It's healthcare for vets, training, education, i.e. like VRD, GI Bill, and then to get housing. One, I'm just not going to. Who sucks at their job tell you to not use this loan. That's a person that's probably making more money selling you a different loan product. They're full of shit. Don't listen to them. There are certain situations that I would recommend you to a different loan, but it's rare, like super rare. So don't let somebody who stinks at their job tell you otherwise. And what does it look like when someone stinks at their job? When they call themselves a VA loan expert and they've done 5 loans in the past year. We have 97 in the pipeline right now. VA eligibility, what makes you eligible? 90 days of active duty service. You're here at this school, you're eligible. What is certificate of eligibility? First, you send me a text message. The first thing I do is pull your certificate of eligibility. And that's to make sure that there's no errors. I just handled a friend of mine. He's bought like 2 houses with the VA loan. His certificate of eligibility showed
Thank you. All right, can you hear us? Let's hope. Okay, where's that? Oh yeah, certificate of entitlement. So the first thing we're going to do is pull your COV to make sure there's no mistakes. If there are, we're going to correct them. Takes about 20 days to go out, 20 days to come back. You have a 30-day closing, that's fine. But like, we need to know about it day 1. So like, what does this mean? So this is when I did Big Dog's $4 million place at 8th and I in DC. The Big Dog Chesney wanted a $4 million house. He was charged $1 million in entitlement. This is always 25% of your initial payment. And that ate up his basic entitlement. So someone that thinks it's their job, let's say this is a $400,000 with $100,000 and they're trying to buy in New York City. Someone that thinks of their job is to be like, oh, you don't have any basic entitlement yet. Basic entitlement is based on a $144,000 purchase. Every single veteran is guaranteed $144,000 purchase. What this means is that past that, it's called a secondary entitlement. And they're not guaranteed to it. The bank has to basically accept your loan as being a secondary entitlement. So people get hung up on that basic entitlement and they're like, oh, I'm not eligible. So you've bought a house before and you want to buy another. That's cool. It's just a simple little math equation. So there's county loan limits, right? Like I said, the lowest is 766, 550. The highest is a place like New York City, 1149625, 825. So that gives you a guarantee. So let's say you bought a $600,000 house in 2020. You were charged $150,000. So you take your, and I'll send all this calculations. You guys, you take your guarantee minus your $150,000. That's your remaining entitlement. Multiply it by 4. And that's your budget. That $550,000 number is your budget with no down payment. Let's say you want to buy a $1.5 million place. You're just replacing the VA's 25%. So your cost to down payment is $237,000 on a $1.5 million place. That's insane. A normal person's going to pay like $450,000 for that. Funding fees. So base case, if you have any disability, 10% or more, or you are a Purple Heart recipient, pay no funding fee. If you made it off active duty without stubbing your toe or having tinnitus and you don't have 10%, we need to talk because you're a magician. If you don't have funding fee, or rather, if you have to pay the funding fee, it's not that bad. It's 2.15%. Again, to put this in perspective, maybe a person's paying like 5% and a lot more fees on the back. Even if you have to pay, it's going to use 3.3%. Buy that down again. It doesn't.
Currently own another house, or what if you own that house and it resets?
Yep. Yeah. Reset. And then that would be a subsequent use, unless you have VA disability. If you have VA disability, you never pay ever. On the funding fee side, that is reasonable to you or reimbursable. Let's say you got out January 1, you got VA disability February, or rather you bought a house February 1st, and you got VA disability March 1st. If your VA disability predates you purchasing the home, it's January 2nd, let's say, they return your funding fee to you. So for those of us waiting, they're off active duty, they're waiting to submit your VA disability, that's fine, as long as it predates the purchase of your home. What's it look like for active duty folks that maybe are waiting on a Purple Heart? So I have a friend who's a gunny. He received a Purple Heart from a TBI in Afghanistan. At the time that he got the TBI, it was not didn't meet the requirements for a Purple Heart. It was late. He had bought a home in the middle, and he was refunded his money. So that's pretty cool. That's a small group of people, but a nice thing. So what are the 4 pillars of a mortgage? Credit, assets, income, and property value and appraisal. Top 3 you worry about. The bottom, don't worry about it. Just find the house that you want. We'll figure it out on the backside. Credit, I'm not going to bore you with what credit is. You all have decent credit. You're here. Just the number you want to think in your mind is about 720. That's like the magic number where we're going to get you the best rate. The best thing that you can do to get the best rate possible is get your highest credit score. So what do you do to do that? You have me or you instantly pull your credit and find out if there's anything wrong. So in the example I gave you with that guy that had the messed up COE, he had deployed in 2020, had a lease on a car. When he deployed in 2020, he booked the lease. Well, Teachers Credit Union of America or whatever never dropped off the lease. For 4 years, he's had delinquent payment, which is not accurate, right? Because he booked the lease under SCRA. But that was just something we needed to fix. Not a big deal. He calls Teachers Credit Union to back it off his credit report. And that takes like a month. But you want to know that stuff. And why did we structure it as a brokerage and not a retail lender? Because I can pull a soft credit report, credit profile, and tell you like, hey, you might want to fix this stuff. And it doesn't take that 5-point hit. If I was paying you money, I'd have to do a hard pull. We do a hard pull right before you close, which is a benefit to you. Assets, so any cash, 401k, TSP, IRA. If you're a little short on your funding fee, or if you need something like, if you're a little short on cash to close, you can borrow that from a friend. Up to $18,000 is non-taxable in a gift, family. But if it's over $18,000, let's say that friend or family loans you the money at 1% interest. That's a loan. That's good to go. You just write a little letter saying that like Joey's lending you money at 1% a year, and that just gets calculated in your DTI. If you're getting a large cash deposit within 60 to 90 days of closing, just make sure it's in there, or rather within closing, just make sure any cash is sitting there for 60 to 90 days. It's called seasoning. They just don't want to see like 100 your account the date of closing. And if it does, if there's an explainable reason that is outside of the mob, that's fine. Just like you'll write an email, you explain like, oh, I just got my, whatever, my student loan refund from NYU, and we put that in, and that's fine. Income employment, that's why you're here. Luckily for you, when you graduate, hopefully you'll have an offer letter. You can use that offer. This is the biggest thing I can give you. You can use that offer letter to count towards your income because you don't have any break because you've been at school. So you can purchase your home 60 days before that offer letter starts. So you graduate May 15th, offer letter starts June 15th, you can close April 15th. You don't have to even graduate school, you can close on a house. Self-employed, So for those of us that are doing search funds, organize your search in a way where it's an LLC paying you as a W-2 employee. Give yourself an offer letter. Even if it's self-funded, you can like structure the LLC in a way to make you look like you have a legit offer letter. If you do, even if you're doing a self-funded search, you're still going to make some amount of money. Don't blow it up. Don't say you're making $1 million when you're not. That's a bad thing. That's called fraud. Disability or BAHBS, non-taxed income, is plussed up 25%. So if you make $1,000 a month on VA disability, I get to count it as $1,250 on your DTI, which is great. And then pre-existing rentals. So if you bought a house on active duty, or even before this, you have it presently right now rented out, 2 years or more tax returns, that's sweet, because otherwise we have to take 75% of your gross rent. But if you can show that that you're like actually really profitable on this rental, then sweet, you get to use that towards your DTI. You just need 3 months of PITA. What the hell is PITA? Principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and association fees. So if you own a condo in San Diego, it's $1,000 a month association fee. Make sure you have $3,000 in addition to your mortgage payment in a cash reserve on the date of closing. So property value equation. This is the map that I was talking about that shows where termite inspections are listed. Like I said, I live up here, right above you guys. Technically, it's a termite state. I didn't do a termite inspection. Why? Because on my normal, just like pre-purchase inspection, the guy noted that there were no termites and that there was a termite plan in place, and that was all they needed. They used to have a terrible stigma of like no chipping paint, all that stuff. Not the case, like I said. The only thing that's not wavered is an appraisal. And let's say your appraisal comes in short, $50,000, you just bring $50,000 cash to close, and that's fine. Again, and that cash can be a loan, whatever you need to actually get it done. Underwriting. So you're not going to hit the residual limit. This is more for our like families that relative to their income are really stretching thin. Just remember that this is the only thing that I can't step you through. If you're bumping up against basically $1,500 a month residual income, that's the one thing that's going to keep you from getting underwritten. The other thing you should remember here is that they break down the states as South, Midwest, the West, and the Northeast. So I'm from Louisiana right here. I never knew that Delaware was the South until the VA put a geography for you, I guess. DTI. So what is DTI? It's debt to income. So front end is your mortgage. This is what you're going to use in this case study I'm going to show you to judge your comfortability level. So when I did it, I was like, all right, I'm going to make 150,000 base as a banker, 150 bonus, it's active duty. I'm going 55 for actually, I think I was 58% front end DTI. To put that in perspective, I usually wouldn't push someone above like 40%. So I was like, I'm going to go to the polls. And back end is your life. Loans, bills, recurring debt, car loans, all that stuff. That's all your back end. So back end is what the underwriter looks at, and you cannot ever go above 70%. Really, we want you to be at like 65 just in case something pops. We want to give you a little bit of flexibility. Manual underwriting is your savior. Let's say you're at 69.9% back end DTI, and you're me. You're going to go be an investment maker, but I don't get to count your bonus for 2 years. Well, I get to tell the guy or gal who's going to write your loan. I can be like, well, yeah, on paper he's only making 150, but he's also going to make another 150,000 in January of the next year. And they're like, oh, okay. And I can be like, oh yeah, by the way, he also has pending disability. He's going to make another $2,000 a month. And so it doesn't actually change your DTI, but it gives the person that's putting their license on the line a little bit of comfortability that you're like, actually make this payment at 70%, which is relatively high. But it could also not be high. And how? If you're buying 4 units as a multifam and you're making, let's say you bought $4 million places and it's $8,000 a month, so you have $32,000 in mortgage payment, but you're receiving $24,000 in rent. Well, your DTI is going to be real high, but in actuality, it's going to be like 30%. So, and I'll show that example in a little bit. Student loans. So some loans, I had student loans, not a big deal. Take your bulk student loan, divide it by 12, multiply it by 5%. That gives you a monthly amount that we have to count towards your DTI. Loans and leases less than 10% can be excluded unless it's significant. I love lawyers. Put stuff in quotes. What is significant? Well, if you bought a Ferrari on deployment, you're paying $4,000 a month. That's significant. We count that. Spousal debt goes to community property. So sometimes, if you're married, sometimes I will tell you to leave your spouse off your loan. That does not mean that he or she is not included on the title of your property. These are two separate things. If she or he has debt and you don't have debt and they don't work, I'm excluding them from their profile. If they have a great job and you have a job and you're a vet, I'm excluding her or him off the profile. Why? Because if you can just do one person, the other person's totally encumbered in a non-community property state. New York is a non-community property state. Virginia, non-community property state. So what does that mean? Is that 6 months from that point, if you're like, oh, we want to buy another house, then the other person, let's say it's that vet situation, goes and buys a house and no one knows that they have an outstanding VA loan. Huge benefit. We did that in Connecticut, by the way. We were able to do that. Child care always counts towards residual. What does that mean? If you have a child, the VA wants to know that you have money left over for them. And it sometimes counts towards DTI. Does it mean sometimes? If you're paying tuition monthly for that child to go to school, then that counts towards DTI. If you have a loan to pay for their tuition, same deal, DTI. Union cost. I love this one. What do you think the max distance per month that you have to drive or have to say like, hey, you might be lying about living in San Francisco and working in, I don't know, Idaho. What do you think the distance is per month in a car driving? Anyone? People. How much? That's like the closest thing. It's 4,500 miles. If you're driving 54,000 miles a year, then and only then would I be like, hey, you're probably lying about where you're living. But like, this is where it comes in and you can say like, well, I work in the office once a week or once a month or once a quarter. And so it makes sense to why you live in San Diego and work in SF or whatever. What's up? Oh, okay. DTI calculation. So this is what a front-end DTI looks like. Disability, it spits out this gross number, and you start deciding what you want to spend per month to make yourself feel comfortable. Spit out some rates. This is like a very simple payment calculator, right? Or payment, inverse payment calculator, and you start seeing what your budget is. So like right now, we're kind of over here in this rate market. So like you could buy, in this situation, you could buy like between a $1 and a $1.6 million house and feel really good about yourself. Multiple buyer scenario, what's that? Bases your monthly income. Yeah. Gross, before taxes. Every calculation is before taxes. Multiple buyer scenarios. So non-married veterans, you guys dating, you want a house together, you're engaged. If you're engaged, I'm probably going to tell you to go get legally married because it helps out. But if you don't want to do that, that's fine. You're each charged 50% of your entitlement. Again, unless I could advise you at that point that if you guys didn't need to both be on it, maybe just one stay off. But if you both need to be on there, not a big deal. You just charge 50% of your entitlement. The only thing is you can't stack your eligibility. Meaning if you both had purchased houses previously, or if one had purchased a house and you have an encumbered VA entitlement, remember that example I showed you? You can't stack them to buy like a $2.4 million place in New York. Most of the time, it doesn't really matter though. A non-married co-borrower. So you met someone here at NYU, you guys want to spend time together, awesome. He or she will just replace the 12.5%, that 50% of your entitlement that you can't bring to the table. But this is big if I see this with people doing search funds and like maybe something where your earned income is not a lot in the beginning, but it's going to pick it up in the end. We put your parents on the loan or your brother or sister or whatever. We put someone that has some relationship to you that wants to help you out to basically help you raise your DTI or lower your DTI and raise your purchase price. Property tax. Sorry, property type. So the main purpose for the VA loan is a primary residence for you. So primary residence, single family home you need to occupy within 60 days. And it needs to be your primary residence at the time of purchase. And you should be there for a year. But if you have a change in circumstance, my example, right? So I bought the first by like December. I was miserable. Probably the time I was meeting you guys for recruiting, I was like pale, way out of shape, can't do this shit anymore. And I started thinking about my exit strategy, right? But at that point, I was freaking out because I was like, I have a $15,000 a month mortgage. My wife just left after duty. Like, I got to stay in the city. So I thought you could have a change in circumstance. So I literally just wrote an email to the VA and I was like, hey, I bit off more than I can chew. I can't do this anymore. My wife left active duty. I want to move to a smaller house. And they're like, fine, go use your wife's VA loan, buy another house. And that's exactly what we did. Remote work just needs an employer statement saying how much you're in the office. Once a month, once a quarter, once a week, whatever. It's fine how long you're there, and then that releases you from that max commuting distance that I was talking about. Otherwise, you'll be held to that. Property can have, this is a huge change and one that I can't wait, and I know it's going to be some vet MBA who comes up with this. You can buy a residential property with a single commercial dwelling attached to it. What is that? You buy a townhome in Brooklyn for $2 million, and it's got a Starbucks in the base of it. That's a commercial dwelling attached to a residential property. So that commercial Starbucks pays like 60 grand, triple net. Means that they pay taxes, insurance, all that stuff towards your property. You live above that, and they're paying you to live there. So like I'm trying to do one for a client in Charleston right now. I think it's a $2.3 million purchase. Sorry, no, it's a $1.8 million purchase. It triple nets for $110,000 a year. His payment is $12,000 a month. He's like going to be cash flowing on day one. It's going to be insane. And he's going to live above. We're actually trying to do a renovation loan with that. It's going to be awesome. This is like, we haven't done one of these yet, but if someone figures it out, some shiesty vet, which I can't wait about. Okay. Multifamily. So residential properties are up to 4 units. Anything above that is commercial. VA allows you between 1 and 4 units. You must occupy 1, and then you have to have the likelihood of success as a landlord. Again, I love this stuff. What does that mean? Is it here in the Army or like flying a jet off a carrier? Like I would likely, right? But like we just have to prove your likelihood of success. You need 6 months of payment. So again, on that example where I said you had $4 million places, you have $32,000 of rent roll. You got to have 6 months times 32,000 plus your association fees on cash on the date of close. Documentation, if you don't have 2 years of rental history, like you still in like helping people do that stuff, then you just need to have someone, realtor, homeless Dave, whoever, on the date of close, it's going to be your property manager. If on the next day, homeless Dave gets fired, shit, I guess you're going to figure out how to manage property. All right, whatever. Never going to, can't say that. They might check, fired him because they've abandoned your job and you're figuring it out. Rental income, if it's a brand new rental or less than 2 years of history, we take 75% of your commercial rent. So let's say back to that example, which I'm going to show you in a little bit. Actually, I'll show it to you now. So your rent roll is $8,000 per unit, right? We get count 75% of it. So what does this mean? So like you find one, let's say you're looking at Arlington, Virginia, and they're building a shit ton of new townhomes, right? Like right around $1 million. This is based on a $250,000 base salary, 70% VA. Like you're making a good amount of money, but not beyond what we came to school for. So you look at one, you're like, this is really nice. I think I could rent this for like $8,000. Oh, cool. There's one next door. I'm going to buy 2 of them. Oh, there's a third next to that. I'm going to buy a third. Can I buy a fourth? No, you cannot. The only thing that you can't cross over is that 70% back-end DTI. You're limited to $3 million income earning property at 0% down. And you're also, so like, this is your gross income that I'm using, but in reality, you're making 16 grand a month into your pocket paying off a $3 million mortgage. Like, where does this work? I looked at one, I tried to buy one in Stanford when I was leaving banking. It's 3.3 million. I negotiated the guy down to 3 million. On day one, it would have rent rolled $21,000 in my pocket. my payment would have been 19,000. Talk about I don't want to get on a tangent, but like, I don't know why you guys came to school. I came to school to set my family up for success, give my kids something great. And if they want to go be an E-Dog in the teams, sweet. Like they can do that. If they're going to be Red Cross like mom did, they can do that too. I don't want them to have to make decisions that Daddy did, go be an investment banker and hate their lives in order to make an income. So that's my goal, right? Like set them up for success. So, and I'll talk about this a little more, like when I'm diligencing a property. Look for Whole Foods and 10 out of 10 public schools. That's it. No big secret. Like, I don't know if that's right. That's my hypothesis, right? I have another friend. He does 1 to 2 mile concentric circles around schools, Core Power Yoga, Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, and Starbucks because they attract a certain clientele. And those clientele are usually going to pay whatever it takes to get their kids in a good school, eat good food, work out, take care of themselves, and caffeinate the shit out of their body to make all that money. Like that's, so like develop your hypothesis and come up with how you're. So what does my personal example look like? So again, my wife and I lived very, we were in the Marine, or she was in the Navy, I was in the Marine Corps. We lived very frugally. We lived on base, rentals, all this stuff. I was like, I want a steam shower. I want a big ass house. Like I've earned this, right? Earned it. So I got approved for $2.85 million. I bought a $2.725 million house. Now, okay, it worked out in the end, right? It appreciated when I made this deck, it appreciated $3.2 million. That's nice. My payment was crushing. The stroke of $15,000 check when I was making $12,500 base income was crushing me. And I was like, I can't leave this job. Luckily, I made the best decision I ever did, which was to list this thing on Zillow and see if I could rent it for $10,000. I rented it within 12 hours, $17,000 for a 36-month lease with an automatic rate increase equal to CPI. That means that it increases to $17,680 next year. So what does that mean for my property? I'm making 8% cap rate on my present market value. To put that in perspective, normal residential cap rate, commercial rates like less than 6. So I'm beating the average. 4-year ROI is going to be 50% over sunk cost. What do I count as my sunk cost? The entire time I lived there, like all the closing costs, everything that I have ever sunk into that house. Let's say I sell it after these people leave and when we're finished, being here, something, I sell it, we'll walk away with $450,000 in cash. That's way more than I made as an investment maker and a whole lot more fun, right? Like I said, I get to meet people, like the people who lived in it the first time, they own a huge skincare company and they were like wildly fascinating. The second people that are there now own a denture company. Dude made $150 million in 2022. I was like, teach me, man. People are always like, oh, dude, well, that's because you moved out. Even if I moved out and I was making this big payments for these 4 years, I'd still walk away with 110 grand in cash because of the appreciation of the property. Now, like, this is an outstanding example. I'm not going to sit here and pitch that every market is like this, but there are markets in the U.S. and you guys can find them wherever you're going. Like St. Louis, Missouri. I'm helping a dude who's a West Point grad. He's going to St. Louis. St. Louis, Missouri has seen a rapid increase in home prices. Why? 10 out of 10 school districts, good, like relative, like to if you're living in Florida, no hurricanes, none of that stuff, like stable. And I think he's going to pay like $1 million for a house here that would cost probably 4 or 5, 4,000 square foot new. And it's going to, like, that neighborhood has appreciated like 50% since 2020. That's a lot of appreciation, keep rolling, but like, you got to kind of due diligence. I can help you with that. But now we're going to do this case study. We have about 30 minutes for the case study, then we'll go through some questions. I'll answer a couple questions now while we're waiting for people to finish up the case study. All right. So first question, can you do loans all over the country? We have brokerage licenses in 48 states. The 2 that we're waiting on, which we'll have by March 1st, are New York and Massachusetts. So by the time that you guys are close, I can even start your stuff in New York and Massachusetts, but we couldn't until like March 1st when our license comes through. Yes. 50 states. How do you find assumable VA loans? Okay. If you can find an assumable VA loan, again, like you're my client, but like do that. If you are the person giving away your assumable loan, do not do that. Never. Why? Because if that person defaults on your loan, it eats the ability for you to get a VA loan away. So like, unless they're paying you a shit ton of money, do not do that because you're betting on the credit worthiness of the person that's buying it. Someone that is inexperienced in this job will tell you, you'll hear realtors tell you like, oh, it's that you have 5% interest rate. No, unless they're paying you like whatever amount of present value it takes to get from 2.5 to 6.5 or whatever interest rate they're going to get, do not accept that deal. Because again, it locks up your loan with that full civilian that didn't earn it and you're giving it away. Don't do that. And again, that could be case by case, but like never seen it. How strict is the permanent residence clause? I don't really understand the question. Can someone clarify?
With the impression that it could be a loan.
Primary residence, yeah.
I've heard in this, there's no proof that you need that.
It's the intent. You have to have the intent for it to be a primary residence. What does that look like? I have a Marine Corps together. He went down to Dallas. He was JP Morgan. He's a commercial banker. So they do all their training in Dallas, like 3 months. He bought a house, finished his training. He left, put a renter in it, bought it in Harrison. Changed the circumstance. You just have to you have to have a valid reason. Now, don't do this. So we had a dude. He was a friend of mine at the Naval Academy. He bought 5 houses in a year in Virginia Beach, 4 of them with the VA loan and 1 with the FHA. FHA, first time home buyer. So and he's going for his first time home, which checks if you have any loans, right? Which is fine. You can buy an FHA after the other. Again, it just has to be valid. Where did he screw up? So he bought in Virginia Beach, about like $150,000 place. A month later, it's like, this neighborhood is so dangerous. Buys another one, like literally on the same street. A month later, it's like, this neighborhood's so dangerous. Buys another one like a mile away. A month later, so within a year, he's got 5 properties. And then he also financed the entire thing through the same bank. Like, if you are going to, do what you're going to do. If you're going to be risky, be smart. So the bank literally called him and was like, hey, we know what you're doing, and you owe us $750,000 today, or we're going to foreclose on your house. And so he called us, and he's like freaking out, and we wrapped him all into a like one investment property loan, except for the one he was living in, which is the FHA. And we're like, bad, don't do that again. And his dad's an admiral. Like, I'm like, bro, come on. All right, seems like everyone's done. We'll come back to the questions. I really want to hit the case study. All right, so case study shook out 10. So we got single family. Looks like most of us are going to make between 175 and 199. Good job. So we'll go 185. No disability. And looks like majority have a spousal income between 50 and 100. So we'll go 75 on that. And no disability for your spouse. That doesn't adjust. Budget, most people are looking between, it looks like 750 to 1 million. So we're going to go look at that range. And our city choice was Dallas is the winner. All right, I haven't done Dallas yet. Cool. All right. I'm going to bet we're going to find a pretty gangster house for $1 million in Dallas. See if I, not, all right. So, all right, so this is the first thing that I would come in. So we're making 185. Spousal base was 75,000. No disability. I didn't ask this. Do we have student loans? Yes, no. 20,000. All right, 20,000 student loans. Do you have a car payment? You're going to Dallas. You're going to have a car payment. Let's say you. That's probably wrong. Let's say you're going to Dallas. You got get a big Dallas car. You're getting that Yukon Denali XL, and you got a Peloton because again, you're going to be in Dallas and you got to stay fit. So what does that look like for you front end DTI? This is where you start to come in and you start to say like, where would I feel comfortable spending per month, right? Like, is it $10,000 a month? If it is, you're in this range. If it's like I'm probably more in like the $7,000 range, you're like $1 million. So how much is your principal and interest payment per month? So this does not include taxes and insurance, which Texas is an interesting one for veterans. So some states give veterans a varied amount of benefits. Jersey, for instance, if you are fully disabled, 100% disabled vet, you pay no property tax. Texas is the same way, but Texas also gives. Yes.
Now that we're looking at this the other day, I don't know if that's you don't pay property taxes up to $12,000 a year, or if
Yeah. Usually, there's a lot of states, a lot of rules, right? But usually, it's they're taking an amount off the assessed value. It's usually not a bulk rate. Some states, like New York, and certain counties, will give you a benefit just being a vet alone. They'll give you another benefit if you deployed to a combat zone, and then another benefit if you have any type of disability. So just like look into that. Candidly, it doesn't. I can't factor that in. But again, this is stuff I use to tell if you're at 69.9%, 99.99% DTI, and you're going to New Jersey and you're buying that big townhome or like duplex in Hoboken, but you're 100% disabled, I should tell the guy or gal again that's writing a loan, be like, they're actually not going to pay any tax on this entire property ever. And they're like, oh, okay. And like, it like reduces your GTI. So, okay, so this is what you do. First step, right? You like throw this stuff in and you're like, okay, like, yeah, I feel good. What did we pick? We picked 750 a million. Sweet. Let's go see what we can get for 750 to a million in Dallas, Texas. Do we have a neighborhood picked out in Dallas for the two people that picked it? All right. Well, then let's look at what our max range is. So like, this is one thing I both want to tell you and also want to caution you on. You will get creeped. Like when I started my home search, I was looking at $750,000 condos in New York City. Obviously, that's not what I did. But I ended up 4 or 5 times that. So this is your range that you can like comfortably look at and feel like you can make that payment, especially if you've got a big bonus coming in at the end. Like feel all right about that. So like if you start finding that you can't find houses, like this is when you revisit, you're like, all right, well, like what does it look like? So let's bump this a little bit. If we already know because we have someone that's looking in the Dallas market that we're not going to be able to do it at 1 million, but then let's say what we can find from 1 to 1.5. That's still within the range. So I think what's that one in Dallas? Is it like College Highland Park? Is this up here, huh? That looks great. Oh, this is a multifamily. We don't want a multi. We want a single. That's because we're going to Texas. Stay off my land, all right? That's a pretty house. Jeez, 1.5. Let me tell you, that would not be 1.5 in Greenwich. That's a cool house. We see any that are like jumping off the map. Which should we do? This one? I like this. It's a pretty house. All right, so 1.5. What you want to do, look at your HOA immediately, find out, make sure you'll see this in New York, you'll have like a $2,500 maintenance fee. Dumb, don't do that. Also in New York, use Street Easy. I like Zillow. Zillow is really good, but in New York, use Street Easy. You can subdivide by condo or co-op. Only look at condos again. Don't get into the trap of looking at a co-op. Let me give you a great example of a co-op. So my buddy that we helped buy that place, a condo, So he's at Google, he's got a bunch of cash, he was going to use conventional loan to buy the co-op. They wrapped him up for like 3 months going through some stupid co-op approval. So he went to the Naval Academy, deployed, medically retired, went to an incredible business school. It'll get very narrow if I tell you where. He is the youngest global head of Google ever. Dude is a fucking water walker, makes a lot of money. And they're like, oh, we don't want your riffraff in this co-op. So he wrapped him up for 3 months. His rate, this is 2020, his rate goes from like 2.25 to 3.5 just in that time. It's like, that sucks. I mean, 3.5 is still awesome. I take it all day, but like, why? So that they can pick and choose who they want to live in their house? Like, that's ridiculous. So then you want to come down here and look at property taxes. So it looks like they're assessing, interesting, they're assessing like a 2, this is land, this house was built in 2022. We're just going to leave it at 1% for property taxes. That's normally what I use. And then 0.675, like this is area dependent. You know, if you're in Florida, it's going to be a lot, you know, because you're paying hurricane tax, all that. Dallas, usually don't worry about that stuff. So we had, what was our house? 1.5. And then rate right now, it's about 6.85. Yearly taxes, 15,000. Yeah, that's a fine number. I mean, again, like you're just using this to estimate and see where you're going to fall out. Yearly insurance, that's definitely high. That's probably going to be more like, that's about right for what I'd see on a new build 1.5. This is also highly variable. You got a new build house, you've got new electrical, new appliances, all that. You're not going to have a fire erupt in your wall. You're not going to pay a ton in insurance. HOAs, none. You're going to approve for this 57% back in DTI with, it would put us at like a 45% front end. You're going to approve every single day of the week, no issues. So, and you're living in a house that you own in Dallas, Texas. It's probably got a great school district. Let's see if they actually spit out the school district. Okay, this one does have a good school district. So like maybe find one that does have a good school district. Yeah, 4 out of 10, not necessarily the best. So now we'll go through the rest of the questions. And again, like I put in here, like there's VA rate, disability, there's a property tax rate that you can use. I think these are a little high. Again, like we develop backend when you send me a house. You send me a house, I tell you like go get a property tax sheet. Like usually they'll give it to you in the closing disclosures. Get a homeowner's insurance quote, send that to me. We start building this thing out. If you are above 69.9, let's say, well then you can pay cash to buy your rate down, which would lower your DTI. There's ways to work this through that I'll advise you on. And then that's my contact info. But let's talk about some Q&A. All right, so we went through a couple of them. How do I find a real estate broker who knows what the VA home loan is and has experience working with vets or other service members? So the short answer is I can pick one. We're building out a network of spouses, family members, whatever. That's our end state goal with Vets Alliance, is that like it's one stop and we handle you from finding a loan, finding a house, finding an escrow company. They are not insular to us. What's that?
You kind of go live in units, but then kind of start music.
Yeah.
How does that sort of change the navigation of that and does it get
Yeah, so you should get legal advice on this. But the way that I would tell you to structure it is make an LLC, have the LLC raise money to do a varied investment, and then that varied investment pays you a salary, right? And then you buy your house with that money. You can't give the people ownership of your home. I remember that whole like non-interested party thing, but there's nothing stating that someone can't give you a shit ton of money and then you pay them an interest rate, right? So like I'm raising money on this house that I'm renovating in Connecticut. I own it with a VA loan. I'm gonna raise $1 million at probably a 10% coupon, a PIK, payment in kind, and I'm going to pay people a 10% coupon on a house that I own, right? There's some risk that person's taking, but like, I don't know, I think I'm pretty creditable. So like, they have to believe in you, believe that you're not gonna steal their money, and then you can do it. But they can't have any ownership of your house as a VA loan. But whether, yeah, I mean, I think that answers it, but like, there's totally ways to structure it. Yeah. Connecticut is fair with LLCs. Get a LLC for the state that you want to do. Get a lawyer to advise you. Get a CPA to advise you on the backside. Like, I can help you a little bit with that, but again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a CPA. I only know it from personal experience, but there's ways to do it. Oh yeah, so to find a real estate broker, so I can help you. That's number one. There's also some real estate firms that I have had exceptional success with, and one of them is Compass. So I'm a Connecticut and New York real estate broker. I hang my license with Compass. I'm hard to impress, and I've been exceptionally impressed with basically every Compass employee I've ever met. And that's because the guy that started it, the Goldman Sachs banker, and I'm not saying that like bankers are whatever. He's a smart dude. He started a smart company. It's got great tech, and he hires really top-notch people. Like, I am like not the top broker there. Like, there are some really fucking awesome people in that office. So it's like, if you take away anything to find a good real estate agent, go to a Compass agent. The other thing is, it doesn't cost you anything to have an agent. Don't just go out on your own and start looking. Like, have someone there, because whether you have some area expertise like in Dallas or whatnot, just having someone to like double, have your six and be like, yeah, I do think that's a good neighborhood. Like, or I've seen a lot of transactions there. It doesn't cost you anything. The seller's paying them, roughly 2 to 3%. Doesn't cost you a dime. So get the best person you can. Like, find the rankings for that region or whatever. Get the top agent that you can. And then whether they have VA knowledge or not, you give them my phone number. I talk to them for 45 minutes. I tell them till they're blue in the face how green the VA loan money is. And then they go and pitch your deal to the seller's agent. If they're not willing to do it, I'll do it for you. Because the last thing that I want to ever hear is some agent not doing his or her job and you losing your house, which happens. And that's how I actually got into this job, was that in 2020, I had an agent that sucked at her job, was making like 50 grand on the deal, didn't know shit about the VA loan, and mispitched my offer. So like, I don't want that to happen. But good, because now I do this. What's up? No, please. Yeah. Yeah. I am unfamiliar of any specific laws in New York City that would prohibit loans or national laws. I'm nationally licensed by the National Mortgage License Service. That's by design, so that understand WAC and all that stuff. That's so that New York doesn't have a different discount rate from Detroit, right? Like, if you're an investor, you'd obviously rather have money in, well, maybe not obviously, but you probably have the money in New York. By Detroit, stop. So it's nationwide. So I don't know of any specific laws in New York City that prohibit, I can look into this, that prohibit a refinance. But specific to the VA loan, there's something called the IRRL, the interest rate reduction loan, which is an incredible thing. And don't get wrapped around like the rate today is X. We can do, in certain markets, we're able to do things called buy downs. So the seller can give you up to 4% concession on the deal. And we would put that in an escrow account and buy your rate down in like a 3-2-1 or a 4-2-1. What does that mean? 4-2-1 buy down. First year, you pay 4% under the rate that you actually have your loan at. Second year, 3%. Third year, 2%. Fourth year, 1%. And then fifth year, you're finally paying your actual rate. Dude, if we haven't refinanced you by the fifth year, I'm failing at my job and the global economy is screeched to a halt. Like, so there's that can't happen in New York. It's not going to happen in New Jersey. It's not going to happen in Connecticut. But if you're going to Pensacola, Florida, and you're making a nice offer to the seller, we're probably going to be able to negotiate a concession to where that's going to work out. Maybe, probably not Dallas. Some places. It's variable. That's where having a market expert of a realtor is going to really be able to tell you. They're going to be able to tell you, like, is this an at market price offer placed, or is this like a below, above, whatever. but there's ways to do that. And cost to refinance a VLO is exceptionally low because everyone wants this from a finance perspective. Everyone wants 100% loan to value where the U.S. government is guaranteeing 25%. They want I would want that. I hope that answers that question. How different is the process between states and local governments? Some states require escrow. California is an escrow state. Connecticut is a lawyer state. What does that mean? Lawyers handle the transactions. Connecticut, California, escrow companies handle the transaction. Makes no difference to me or you. It's just how they've structured their laws. Yeah, that's about it. Local governments, some local governments have county taxes. Again, it's just like something that's variable. There's one question about someone active duty transferring. I'll reach out to you via email. Applying it to more expensive houses. I hope that you gained from this. If you get approved for a $4 million house, and you want a $4 million house, we're gonna get you a $4 million house. You get a $4 million multi, we'll get you a $4 million multi. Basically, whatever you feel comfortable with, and I can help you with that advisory role and tell you what I would do in hindsight. I got really lucky, and I brag about the money I'm making on Millbank. I'm Will did fucking 68% back end. Don't do that. I can't tell you what I was feeling when I came to brief you guys, and I literally wanted to fucking shake you and be like, please don't be an investment banker. Don't do what I did. Now, I learned a lot, and Alan was really cool, and I worked on cool deals and whatever. Well, shit doesn't matter. When I wasn't seeing my kid, for 6 months and not doing anything that was earth shattering, I love doing this. I love talking to you guys. I love helping you get houses. Fucking hated being an investment banker. Oh, cool. I sold Heineken from Bemsa. Who gives a shit? Not me. I don't know. How to use it in a place like New York City? Same deal. Buy a condo, buy a freestanding home, Brooklyn, one of the 5 boroughs or whatever, Westchester County, all that stuff. You can't buy a co-op with, and even if you had all cash, I would advise you not buy a co-op. It depends. There's ways around it. My house is not up to VA standard. We got done. We could do a rehab loan where you're going to the railings. It just depends. Biggest thing is find a place that you feel comfortable doing. We'll figure out how to make it work. How a VA fund is calculated. We talked about that. Buying a rate down and how that works. So let's say that the market rate is 7.25, and you want to buy down the rate. You want to make your rate 4.5%, because you have, and this is another thing. If a mortgage broker is willing to tell you a rate without looking at your profile and without seeing a deal, they are full of shit. They are lying to you. I could tell you right now, I'll fucking give you a 5.5% loan, and then you go to close and I hit you with 30 grand in fucking closing costs. And you're like, what is this? I'm like, dude, I told you 5.5% rate. Bullshit. Don't listen to that guy. He's a fucking scam artist. And I see that shit all the time. It drives me insane.
A funding fee?
They call it, no, funding fees VA specific. So anyone who says this is a mandatory fee, there are mandatory fees and there are non-mandatory fees. Anyone who says this is a standard fee, this is a traditional fee, that's technically they're breaking the law, and you should call them out on it. So I charge a $995 document fee. It's the only thing it costs you to use me. Veterans United is $3,500. Regardless if you do a $300,000 loan or a $3 million loan, they charge $3,500. So they'll wrap it into some way to make it say or they'll call you and be like, we had a shift in market rates and it went from 5.5 to 7.5. Again, they're lying. They never had a 5.5. If they sell you something that's doesn't seem right, you make them send you a deal sheet that locks it in, because either they're going to lie and be like, oh, I can't do that, or they're going to lie. The way I do it and the way that my team does it is we have analysts that work in the background that give us market leaders. What's a market leader? 10-year treasury note, something like that. And they're going to tell us hey, we think your client's is locked today. And then we're going to call you and be like, hey, and again, it's up to you. You have a different interpretation of the market that I did. You're a very smart person. I'm not going to second guess your judgment. If you're like, I think we're in an interest rate falling environment, and I'm telling you that's interest rate rising environment. But don't be obsessed between the difference between a 675 loan and a 685 loan. You're talking like $30 a month. But let me give you an example. 2 weeks ago, we were at 685. A week after that, we were at 7.5. So our people that were trying to do like big dog stuff and they're at 69% instantly bumped above what we can underwrite. And then we're having to buy down rates or do all this stuff. So what is the buy down? So you want to buy from a 7.5 to a 7, you pay like 1 percentage point. You pay on $1 million loan, you pay like $10,000 and buy your rate down. When does it make sense? If it saves you more money than you're spending within the first year, that's probably a good marker. Like other things you can do, a net present value calculation is just as good as I can. Assign yourself what you think you can get in the market. Let's say it's 10%. Are you going to make more money in the market than you're saving? Keep the money in the market. Leave as little money in the deal as you can. But again, what? Okay. There's someone here I'll address, but I want to hear your question. Yeah. Yeah. How do you beat that? Yeah. So that's the various things. So I beat the house in Connecticut against an all cash offer. How? So there's things that you can do as a buyer that I can't do as a real estate. This is on the real estate broker side. I can't go to the seller and be like, you have to take this guy. He's a vet. That's steering and like crossing some lines. There's nothing stating that you can't walk up to the seller of the house and be like, hey, George, like I'm a vet. I have 2 kids and I love your fucking house. And if that person doesn't feel a heartstring for you, then they're harder than any person I've ever met. That's exactly what I did. Because I was 20,000 over an all cash offer. The seller's agent called my agent and was like, hey, you didn't get the house, but like you're the backup. You were technically higher. I have to tell you, if you were higher, if you're not higher, you're not going to get it. But if you're higher, and they're like, hey, but we're going to take this all cash offer. I jumped in the car, drove over with 2 cigars, old man sitting on his porch. He has 2 sons that he raised by himself. It's a long story. And I was like, hey, George, I'm Will, and I want to buy your house. And he's like, how do I know that name? Like, because you have an offer from me. I was like, it's a VA fund. It's a VA loan. He's like, why is it a VA loan? I was like, I was a Marine for 6 years. My wife is in the Navy for 6 years. Like, we moved here for school and work. And he literally goes, do you know Captain Doug Borbach? And I was like, yeah, that was my supply officer at the Naval Academy. He goes, it literally is like, house is yours. And he made me put 20 grand down in earnest money. Now that's an outlier. That's like a weird example. But dude, you're competing against people that have like more money than they know what to do with, or the ability to get more cash. Dude, do whatever it takes to close the house. Another thing, and I know we're running out of time, you can structure a deal. So let's say you have to waive contingencies. You're in Connecticut, you have to waive everything. So there's a VA addendum that says if the house doesn't appraise, you don't lose your earnest money. The seller has to sign that VA addendum in order to close. So that's one protection for you, even if you waive contingencies, finance contingencies. Another thing, you can waive the inspection contingency, but then let's say, so you waive it on the initial offer, they send you back a counteroffer to sign, and you say, oh, I just want to do an inspection for my own purposes. You have the inspection done the next morning as you're sending the earnest money. Inspection fails, you cancel the earnest money and you walk away from the deal. But technically, you've not had a contingency on the deal, but you've still had what you need. And that's what I did again in Connecticut. You still have what you need to feel comfortable about spending whatever amount of money. So there's ways to do it and make yourself competitive. The other way is putting a big down payment. You know, you put 30% down on a house, that person's gonna be like, oh, this guy's serious. So I hope this is super helpful, guys. If you have any questions, I'll address the rest of these in like a short video or just email, text after. I have your emails. I'll shoot you this stuff after. If you have any questions, you ever need anything, if you just want to just like bounce ideas off, I love this stuff. And I obviously love the vet community. So thank you for having me. And there's one, can you transfer the title of a home to an LLC? You can transfer title to LLC, but then they would not be able to refinance as other deals. So the way to get around that is to relinquish yourself from liability. If you have an LLC manage it, then you're just the owner. So that way you should still refinance with the VA, but it relinquishes you from responsibility.
Well, what's going on, Governor?
Hey, nice to meet you.
Yeah, thanks for the time today. So I'm moving down to DC after graduation, and I actually have a meeting with a lender on Thursday.
Okay.
So I think I'm gonna get